Mr. Seetharam Reddy, Additional DGFT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. Mr. Anil Agarwal, Senior Vice President, FTCCI.
Worked like lion in making it an excellent agreement, and I don't want to steal those words from him. And I'm very much delighted to inform you that FTCCI jointly with Government of Telangana led a business delegation to Dubai during this Global Expo. And fortunately, at the same time, the Indian contingent led by Srikar Reddy garu, they have come all the way to Dubai to discuss these agreements. This has happened in a very short duration, I believe, and our team has negotiated excellently in making this agreement a reality. And this delegation where we went, it is like one day before going to exam. The entire trade delegation was going for discussions, and fortunately, our trade delegation from Telangana consisting of almost 20 delegates were there on that time, and we had a fortunate that we had a very close interaction with that team. And just before going to exam, we have given a lot of tips so that ultimately it has come as a reality. And this we were just skeptical at that time because a lot of on these negotiations, a lot of give and take issues will be there. But I think our team has successfully negotiated. And some of the important happenings during this expo for us as a Telangana business delegation, excellent presence of Telangana business community during this Telangana week. We were there everywhere. And joint participation of FTCCI with state government on various platforms. We met many delegates, many business houses there. The promotional video of our delegates played continuously during Telangana week, and deep insights into business, chamber functioning and business atmosphere. And press and media in UAE and Telangana gave an excellent coverage to this. And actually I reserve my comments because when Mr. Krishna Bhaskar is not there, and I keep telling this, I think some of you who have missed it out, like when we were discussing with Dubai Chamber of Commerce, with Mr. President Omar Khan, and in the presence of Telangana, headed by APIC Chief Narasimha Reddy. So I boasted myself that FTCCI is 105-year-old organization, and we are largest in the state of Telangana. We have 3,000 direct members and 25,000 indirect members. So then I asked him, Mr. Omar Khan, what is your membership base? So he said, to my shock, 270,000 members. So I was a little surprised because entire Dubai is not even matches in anything with Telangana. So then the reason for it, what he said, like in Dubai and UAE, by law, any business registers in the land of Dubai has to become a member of any trade body, whether any chamber or a trade body. And Dubai Chamber of Commerce being the forefront, they grabbed maximum, and 2.7 lakh members were there. So then after coming here, on various fora, we appealed to state government of Telangana. Look, now 1 lakh businesses are there in this state of Telangana. And if you count, hardly less than 10,000 people are members of various chambers or various trade bodies. So government should take a proactive step, because now we are not having 90,000 business houses data with us. Like, let them be part of any small association, but you should have some connection with the government so that what sector you are operating, what business you are operating, what are the quality parameters your environment, all these things. Somehow we need to connect with the government of Telangana so that we all can make a change in the trade, commerce and industry development in the state of Telangana. That was our appeal, and unfortunately Mr. Bhaskar is not there, and Mr. Jayesh is unable to make it because of COVID and is unable to speak properly. But definitely I use this fora to highlight this point. And FTCCI will continue to organize business delegation to various countries, more particularly with UAE, and exploring business opportunities, thereby enhancing trade and economic activity between both the countries. I would also like to mention that FTCCI started conducting series of skill development programs to strategize and identify the major challenges in the roadmap and key gaps. So I think we thank Government of India and Commerce Ministry. They have come forward and extending whatever, whenever we ask for any support, they are there to support. Of course, through Telangana government. FTCCI is kind enough to receive that kind of a support from Government of India and Government of Telangana in organizing skill development programs, and look forward to continued cooperation from both the governments. So the signing of CEPA is an encouraging sign for businesses in both India and UAE to see further strengthening of already strong trade relationship between the two countries. Both countries have relaxed regulations and laws to invite more foreign investment into their nation. Both Indian and UAE investors have to take advantage of these initiatives and cross-border investment between these two countries. Now with the signing of CEPA, we should expect exponential growth. I think I heard like 0.7% of GDP will be grown and a lot of employment opportunities will be created. And in entire gamut, I am very happy that Telangana is going to take a major share as we have a very close connects and businesses between UAE and India. And I am also happy that both these at Commerce Ministry, both Secretary Mr. Subramaniam and Joint Secretary are Srikar Reddy garu, both son of soils of Telugu states, and we are very, very proud during this time this agreement has happened. I really compliment and I thank both of them, and also I thank Seetharam Reddy garu for taking his time and joining us, and he is always in forefront in helping FTCCI at all times. And I once again welcome you all to this initiative interactive meeting and assure FTCCI's cooperation, and please take advantage of this thing, and any doubts about bilateral issues, because they are there in each and detail of the discussions. If you have any doubts post this program, we can clarify those doubts, and I hope this agreement will help both Telangana, India and UAE a great future business development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy, President of FTCCI, for the welcome address. We recognize the presence of Mr. Mahesh Desai, Chairman EEPC India, Mr. Mahendra Tayal, President of Hyderabad Jewelry Manufacturers Association, Mr. Vikram Singh from MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. Hrishikesh Reddy from the ADGFT Office, Hyderabad, Mr. Sudhin Paul from the Commissionerate of Industries Export Wing, Mr. Rajendra, Director Logistics from Telangana Government, Dr. Nagesha Rao, IAS retired. Thank you, and I thank you one and all for joining this meeting. I now request Mr. G.Seetharam Reddy, ITS Additional DGFT Hyderabad, to address the participants.
Dr. Srikar Reddy, IFS Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, the Chief Guest of this occasion. Shri Bhaskar Reddy garu, President, Chambers of Commerce and Industry. Shri Agarwal garu, Senior Vice President. Shri Meela Jaydev garu, Vice President. Shri Narwane, Chief Executive Officer of Chambers of Commerce. Distinguished invitees for this interactive meeting. We are fortunate to have today with us Dr. Srikar Reddy garu, the Chief Negotiator for this India-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Last time when Commerce Secretary came to Hyderabad and we had an interaction with him, he promised that we are going to have a CEPA with UAE very soon, and we are also going to sign some earlier agreement with India-Australia agreement, and still we are also going with UK and other things. I was little skeptical because I handled bilateral and multilateral free trade agreements during 2010 and 2017 in 3 ministries. I know the difficulties, how to commence the negotiations, organize them, finalizing the text, getting approvals. It's hell lot of a task, especially for the chief negotiator. He has to balance the various interests. I am sure he would have faced the same thing during this meeting also. If you just look at it, UAE will be having about average customs tariffs of about 5%, whereas we will be having about average of 10% is there. So there is little bit asymmetry is there. Although the exports and imports are same, maybe skewed towards petroleum products and gem and chivalry, other than those things. And I have never come across an agreement signed within a span of some 3 months' time, started and concluded. It would have been the first free trade agreement or CEPA. In fact, free trade agreement is somewhat, whereas this is a CEPA which includes more than trade in goods and services. So it must have been a very hectic and pressured job as far as Dr. Srikar Reddy is concerned. I don't want to go into the details of what are the opportunities available under this thing is there, because this is for an individual exporter will be able to see it, an individual importer will be able to see it. The only problem will be with the domestic manufacturers of these goods. See, they have got concerns. But in any free trade agreement or commercial economic partnership agreement, there is a give and take is there. If you look at trees, you miss the woods. This is what I say. Because I handled from 3 different angles. So very difficult task. And this agreement is come after almost 10 years. This is the major trade agreement India has signed. In fact, a couple of years back, we withdrew from the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. It was sending a signal that India is not keen to engage with the world. That is not the truth. In fact, after 2008 financial crisis, it's the developed countries who are going back on these free trade principles. It's India who is pursuing that you people stick to your words, and those things are there. Now we are going to have a limited agreements with other countries also. So we are signaling to the world that India is open. We are looking forward open. We are no longer looking at a protectionist to our industry or something like that. I will leave to the details as well as the nuances of this agreement to the chief negotiator. I will just make only small observations. If you look at India, US, UAE, out of 90 lakh population of that country, 30 lakhs or 35 lakhs will be Indians only. So to that extent, you can say 30% of our manufacturer services rendered, it's like it's an extension of another state. So 30% you say, I'm not giving anything or I'm not gaining anything, whatever you may call it. You just look at it. Okay, in Telangana is there, maybe Andhra Pradesh is there, Maharashtra is there. Okay, another 30% of the population are getting the things are there. The second thing which I want to say is that one, yes, there are concerns out there, but when you just see the things is there, rules of origin are very important. They put 40% is the value addition. In some sectors, they put even 45%. Some of you who are the exporters from Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, under our advanced license scheme, I put only 15% value addition. So achieving 40% value addition or 45% value addition is a very difficult. So they have taken care of the domestic industry's requirements also. They have also put one more safeguard mechanisms out there. Nowadays we are putting it. Otherwise you have to go for the WTO, which is more stringent, difficult to prove it, but this stringent is there, these things are. So they have taken care of certain issues are there. And since UAE is the 3rd largest partner and we are entering into this Gulf side, although the India Gulf Cooperation Council's agreement also should have started it, but it's not moving it. But then you have got an opening from this side is there. So that is how we should look at it. And over a period of time, we will understand it, what we have done and how we are going to get the benefits. With these words, I thank once again the Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here. And if I can contribute anything during the question and answer session, I will be able to contribute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Srikar Reddy garu. We have been always receiving great support from the DGFT's office from Hyderabad. Now I request Dr. Srikar Reddy, IFS Joint Secretary, Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, to address the participants.
Sri Bhaskar Reddy garu, President FTCCI, Mr. G.Seetharam Reddy garu, Additional DGFT, Hyderabad, Mr. Anil Agarwal, Senior Vice President, Mr. Jayesh, Vice President, Sri Mahesh Desai, Chairman, Engineering Export Promotion Council of India, Mr. Tayal, Regional Chairman, Johnson Jewelry Export Promotion Council of India, Mrs. Kathy Naravane, CEO FTCCI, distinguished guests, members of FTCCI, and members of other
trade and industry associations, distinguished other participants, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to one and all. I'm delighted to come to Hyderabad and interact with all of you today. So this is like I interacted with the members of FTCCI then in 2012 as a regional passport officer in Hyderabad. I'm again glad to again come back in a different capacity as Joint Secretary in Department of Commerce and come and interact with you, especially also as a Chief Negotiator of the India-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. And also I'm also the Nodal Officer in Department of Commerce for promotion of exports in the states of Telangana and AP. So I couldn't come last 1 year because of COVID and also because I was all engaged with the India-UAE negotiations. So this is the first opportunity I'm having to interact with the trading community and also industry community based in Hyderabad and also in the state of Telangana. So as already Bhaskar Reddy Garu and G.Seetharam Reddy Garu gave some insights of the agreement and the importance of UAE. So as the Additional DGFT G.Seetharam Reddy Garu mentioned, this is the first agreement India is signing over a period of 10 years. First deep and comprehensive agreement. We had signed a small agreement with Mauritius, which hardly is only 5% of the tariff lines of both countries. So even for Mauritius, I was also the chief negotiator of India, so which we signed last year in February, on 22nd February. This year signed on last Friday, 18th February. So the Honorable Prime Minister Modi's vision that trade is also an important engine of growth, and especially export. By promoting exports, we can also create a lot of domestic employment. So for that, in August last year, we also had a meeting with all the stakeholders, like with our ambassadors and the consul generals stationed abroad in all the 200 countries, and with all the export promotion councils, the stakeholders in the state government like the industries department, and he set a target of 400 billion exports for this financial year 2020-21. Already, I'm glad to inform you that already as of 21st February, according to the provisional figures, we have already touched $361 billion US, and we are hopeful that we'll be crossing the 400 billion target on 31st March this year. So you must be aware that so far the maximum exports in value terms was in 2018-19, where we reached around $330 billion. Already we have crossed that by 30 billion, and we are hopeful to target 400 billion, cross 400 billion. So to sustain this momentum and to reach, say for example, overall target we want to both goods and services combined reach 1 trillion by next 6-7 years. So for that, at least for the merchandise trade, we should have at least 600 or 650 billion in next 5 years. So this year also we are working with all the stakeholders to arrive at a target for the next financial year. So that is ongoing process. But the government has realized that new market access has to be provided to our exporting community. So that's why, as Srikar Reddy has mentioned, now government is fast-tracking negotiations with many countries. So already we have concluded this CEPA with the UAE in a record time of 3 months. But overall, it took 6 months if you include the pre-negotiation stage also, finalizing the terms of reference. And we are already, like Australia, we are finalizing an interim agreement. Hopefully, it will happen next month, in the month of March. And UK also, it is the fast-track mode. So I've also started negotiating with the Gulf Cooperation Council, where UAE is also a member, but we have additional 5 countries. Saudi Arabia, we have big markets like Saudi, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and Bahrain. So hopefully, we'll follow the same template as the UAE, and hopefully to conclude in this calendar year itself. And I'm also the chief negotiator for the India-Israel FTA and the India-Southern Africa's Customs Union. All these FTAs, government has put on the fast track mode so that we'll have access, market access for our exports. So if you can see all the negotiations, most of the countries, there is a lot of complementarity. There is not much competition between the products. So whatever we manufacture and whatever manufactured by these countries, there is a lot of complementarity. And competition is hardly is manageable. Not much competition is there. In some products there is competition, but we can manage by. But it is a win-win situation for both all the parties who are involved in such negotiations. That's why now, with renewed vigor, so the Department of Commerce is conducting the negotiations. And even the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, even for the embassies, because I come from the Foreign Ministry but currently on deputation to Commerce, so he made it clear to all the ambassadors and the consul generals that the main job of the embassies abroad is 3 T's, which is promoting trade, promoting tourism, and technology transfer. So which is nothing but investment. So this is the job of the embassies abroad. So whenever any community or any exporter or any member of the industry reaches out to the embassy, now you can see, most of you must have seen the change in the response you are getting from our colleagues working in the embassies abroad. So under the vision of Honorable Prime Minister, so India is not averse to any free trade agreement. Whatever we are seeing is whether it is a balanced and a fair agreement without any barriers, like market tax. Even if you are getting market taxes, there should not be any non-trade barriers. So we have also tried to address some non-tariff barriers also when we negotiated this agreement. I'll be explaining when I will make the presentation. So with these words, Kathy will start the presentation. Okay. Direction can't be. Okay. Go back. Yeah. No. So you pointed to them. This is fine. This is fine. For me, it is fine. I can manage, but this is not moving. He can do it. So move it to the Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Excuse me. Okay, the first slide shows why the trade agreement is important for India. So you can see both India and UAE are largest trading partners of each other. Already some of these speakers before me mentioned. So UAE is the 3rd largest trading partner of India, but it is the 2nd largest export destination of India after the United States. It is the overall, if you add imports also, it is the 3rd largest trading partners of India after US and China. But exports, it is the 2nd largest destination. With we have exports of 29 billion in the year 1920. So there was a fall during the COVID year last year, but we are only taking the trading partner and first largest export destination. So over 10% of our exports, like our exports in the UAE imports constitutes about 10% of their imports. Similarly, in their exports also, India's share is 10%. 10% of UAE exports comes to India. Next. can see not only trade, UAE also is one of the largest investor in India, and already it has invested close to 12 billion US dollars in India. And UAE also during at various levels, it has also pledged to invest US dollars 75 billion in India, especially in the infrastructure related projects. As you know, they have a lot of money in the sovereign wealth funds of UAE. And as already Srikar Reddy has mentioned, about 1/3 of the population of UAE are Indian origin, Indian passport holders. So annually they remit around $20 billion to India. So they are making a significant contribution to the remittances to India. And this agreement is not only about exchange of concession in goods and services, but it is a deep agreement covering various aspects. I'll be showing the next slide. So this 88 days is from the launch of the negotiations, formal launch, which was done on 22nd September. And the official level we concluded on 20th December. But it was signed in February because we had a summit meeting in February. Next. So this you can see a comparison. So population is hardly, population is only around 10 crores population in UAE, 1 crore population, 1 crore, yeah, 1 crore population. But the GDP is significant. You can see the per capita GDP. Even in the purchasing for parity terms, also it is 10 times than India. And also if you see the real GDP, the difference is much more. It will be at least 1:20 times they are richer than India. So the consumption of the people resident in UAE will be much more than the average consumption of the Indian population. You can see, even though it is a small country, global merchandise trade, both exports and imports, more or less they are comparable with India. You can see the exports are more or less comparable to India at 280 billion, and imports are also around 60% of India. Next. So this is a trade figures for 2019. This is basically mostly based on the data given by the United Arab Emirates to us. You can see the exports and imports. So we are exporting in 2019 around 26 billions of US dollar worth of products. And imports, we are importing around 25 billion. So more or less it is a balanced trade. But our imports, basically you can see the column where our imports are oil, only crude oil, which is 10 billion. Around 40% of our imports is oil only, crude oil. And around 27% is the real exports of UAE. Means the products which are manufactured in UAE, which fulfill the criteria of substantial transformation to get benefits under the agreement, which is hardly 27% of their export. And remaining 33%, which are only re-exports, without any value addition, simply because Dubai is a transshipment hub, so the products come to India. So that 33%, which was around 8 billion in 2019, so those products will not be eligible to get any benefit under the FTA because they don't undergo any transformation in UAE. They were also protecting the interests of Indian manufacturing industry. Already rules of origin, Srikar Reddy mentioned something, but I'll tell more when we go to that slide. Next. So this is the comprehensive because for the first time we are having a lot of new chapters. Like we have chapters on intellectual property rights, we have chapters on digital trade, which is a new thing. We have a chapter on the government procurement, and we also chapter on investment facilitation. So these are all the new chapters. For the first time, we are having these chapters in any of the FTA so far. So it's a very comprehensive agreement. Next. So here you can see what is the benefit which will accrue to India or the Indian manufacturers or the Indian exporters. Here you can see 90% of our exports to UAE, so the duty of 5% is levied. Even tariff line also, around 89% of the UAE tariff lines, there is a simple duty of 5%. And what we have got in the FTA. So UAE has agreed to give concessions on around 80% of the tariff lines, which is in the value terms 90% of our exports immediately once it is entered into force. We are working with the UAE that the agreement will enter into force within 60 days time, maybe in the first week of May we are trying. So whenever the agreement enters into force, from day one, all the concessions, all the duty, whatever 5% is levied on Indian exports, 90%, for example, 26 billion is our exports, 90% of which is close to 24-25 billion, will get day one zero duty. And remaining products, for a period of 5-10 years, all the tariff lines, over 97% of the tariff lines, which amounts to 99% in value terms of our exports, will become zero. So that is also within 5 to 10 years. And you can see what are the sectors India will benefit. So mostly it is the labor-intensive sectors, the gem-set jewelry, textiles, apparel, and also agriculture, and also fish products, leather, footwear, sports goods, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and a lot of many engineering products like automobiles, anything, electronic products. So all the products will get zero duty. They only have not given zero duty on a very limited product like tobacco or some alcohol, those kind of products which are sensitive for them in the cultural sense. Otherwise, they open their full market for India. Next. So here you can see as a 33%, 30%. So you can see what are the products which Indian manufacturers can benefit. Most of the products which we have given concessions can be used as input materials or intermediates to many of the other industries, where we can do the value addition and make finished products and again re-export. If you see, we are allowing, say, for example, giving concessions to polyethylene and polypropylene. So these will go as input material to plastic industry. So there our plastic MSMEs will gain and they can re-export. Similarly, naphtha, LPG, all those things will also be as input material to many sectors. Even metals, copper, we have a deficiency, nickel, all those things we need. These are the products which India need from other countries. We are already importing from other countries. Even limestone we import from many countries. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very complementary kind of agreement where it is a win-win situation. Whatever concessions we have given to UAE, nothing industry is not affected. And I'm happy to inform that extensive stakeholder consultations were held during the negotiations. Many rounds, multiple rounds, I myself personally conducted with all the stakeholders, sometimes 7-8 rounds also with some sectors. And every industry is on board. In writing, they are given that they're happy to exchange concessions, whatever concessions they are given to UAE. So no industry, I think, is worried about whatever import duty concessions we are given to the UAE. And secondly, as you can see from the exported, the exclusion list, so we try to protect the MSME sectors where we felt that we have to protect, like you can see from the slide, like jewelry, except we have only given a small TRQ, but otherwise the total jewelry sector is protected. Plastics, we are not open the plastic tariff lines, footwear, TVs, aluminum and copper scrap, automobiles, medical devices, and agricultural products. These lines are in the exclusion category. So we try to protect as much as we could our MSME sector so that they feel assured. Not that there is manufacturing capacity in these products in UAE, but still we thought if there is a chance to protect, we protect it. Next. So here you can see the service sector also, there is a lot of gain for India. We have received concessions in 111 out of the 164 subsectors of services. Like we will get market access in areas like computer services, audio-visual services, where our film and other industries will be very much interested, educational health services, and also professional services. There also there is a gain for India. Next. So here, yeah. So this is very important for most of you, because normally whenever we do FTA, our people think that the transshipment of goods should not happen, and UAE being a hub. So many, or some people in the industry think that it can be misused, but we have ensured that the rules of origin criteria is very stringent. Only products that fulfill the substantive transformation criteria. Minimum value addition, like G.Seetharam Reddy already mentioned, 40%, and agriculture product, it is wholly obtained criteria. And some products like aluminum, it is 45% value addition. So we try to balance that the UAE should not be misused for routing of third country products. At the same time, we also ensure that our exporters should also not to face problems. So if you put too high the value addition criteria, even our exporters will face difficulty, even though UAE is giving tariff concessions. So our exporters should not feel any problem. And one important thing is that the certificate of origin will be provided by the UAE Ministry of Economy, Chamber of Commerce or some other Chamber of Commerce. So the government itself will declare about the origin of the product. So it also assures our manufacturers in India that this route will not be. And all the transshipment goods will be out of the agreement. And one important thing, for the first time in any agreement, we have brought in this new rules, the rules of origin criteria for the steel industry, so which is called melt and pour. So which means that for any steel product, so the steel has to be manufactured in UAE from the furnace. So they cannot simply import some steel and do some value addition sell. But steel industry, the steel, they can only import ore and do melting and create. So that is the kind of thing which we have done for the first time. The steel industry is very happy with this new thing which we have done in this agreement. Yeah, Minister. So because if we give it to some trade association, there could be some misuse. We thought to prevent any misuse, so the Ministry of Economy will issue this certificate.
The industry insisted for that during the negotiation. Country of origin. But we had lot of apprehension. Dr. Srikar Reddy really had a tough time.
Yes. So one important new thing we have done is the Pharmaceutical Annex. So this is a sort of a mutual recognition agreement for any product in any FTA. This is the first thing we have done. So far we don't have any such mutual recognition agreement with any country or any product in any FTA. So here the Indian pharmaceutical industry will immensely benefit. So now the Indian pharmaceutical formulations, there is a zero duty in UAE, but there is a barrier that the registration time is taking up to 1.5 to 2 years. So what we got through this annex is that if at all our products are registered with developed country regulators like US FDA, UK MHRA or EU or Australia or Japan regulatory agencies and Canada also, so they get automatic approval within 90 days of the application. So thereby they can plan. So we cut down the time for the registration and marketing in UAE from 1.5 to 2 years to 90 days. And secondly, for others who are not registered with the six developed country regulators, we said they will preferably do in a period of 270 days. So this is a big thing which will help our Indian pharmaceutical industry. They can directly benefit by in the UAE market and also use UAE as a hub to re-export to other countries. And as Srikar Reddy mentioned, we have for the first time included a permanent safeguard mechanism. So we have safeguard mechanism in the WTO. Whenever there is a sudden surge of imports of any products, we can import a safeguard duty to safeguard the interest of our domestic manufacturing industry. But here, normally in FTAs, there is a bilateral safeguard mechanism which is transitional in nature. Means, for example, if you are liberalizing concessions on any products for a period of 5 years, the tariff is reduced from 10, say, to 0 in a period of 5 years. So the bilateral safeguard mechanism initially was in other FTAs was only for that 5 years period or 10 years period. Now in this agreement we have made it for 10 years, not 10 years but permanent. So as long as the agreement continues, our industry, manufacturing industry can benefit from this permanent safeguard mechanism. Whenever there is a surge in the imports, they can simply file a petition before the Director General of Trade Remedies. And they can benefit from this. Next. So this is the feedback we received from the industry themselves, industry bodies, and it is not my guesswork. You can see the gems and jewelry. In 2019, we were exporting, say, around 9 billion. They said additionally we can export 4.5 billion and create around 400,000 employment. Similarly, engineering goods, we were exporting around 4.4 billion and additional we can enhance by another 5 billion. It is for a period of 5 years, not immediately, but next 5 years. This is we are see maybe 27, 28, we will see that these figures could be realized. We think we are more conservative, but we can gain more. Similarly, in plastic also we can, I think, grow by 200% because we are also getting plastic industry input materials also will be they will be benefiting the industry. Plastic industry will get cheaper inputs and also they can make finished product and re-export to UAE, thereby creating 100,000 jobs. And similarly, textiles also, there is huge potential, like we are exporting currently 1 billion. Additionally, 2 billion, they are projected that all the exports like in the cotton textiles or the man-made textiles and other wool and other things, they said we can gain and also create around 200,000 jobs. In other sectors, only in the 8 sectors we have listed, we are saying that we will create some 1 million jobs. This is, as I mentioned, this is as per the inputs provided by the export promotion councils and industry associations. So they are projecting that India will benefit in this manner. Next. So overall summary, you can see this is the fastest negotiated FTA. This is only from the date of formal launch in September and conclusion at the official level in December. As I mentioned, this is I think I can claim that we have taken everybody on board when we negotiated, all the line department ministries and all the trade and industry association. And thankfully, the virtual technology, digital technology helped me a lot. So within short notice, I used to call a whole virtual meeting with all the industry stakeholders. And some of you from Hyderabad, I remember you also participated in the discussions and also gave your inputs. So we took all the inputs into consideration and even in writing that whatever we offered, especially because everybody will be happy to get something from UAE. So we should take our stakeholders along in what we are giving to the UAE. So all the industry and the ministry is on board. That is the thing. And this is the most comprehensive FTA both for the UAE and also for India. As already mentioned, this is the most comprehensive FTA because we have a lot of other things like digital trade we will benefit and other areas as I mentioned. And we are projecting to our exports will reach 100 billion US dollars in next 5 years from the current average of 60 billion before the pandemic. So we will immediately gain by increasing and enhancing our exports beyond the pre-pandemic level and also reach further 100 billion next 5 years. And as I mentioned, employment is created in labor and intensive sectors and we are expecting 10 lakh new jobs will be created in a period of 5 years. And even the input materials also will be for the other sectors. And also we think that we will also move in the value chain and enhance our exports in high technology products like engineering products, electronics, medical devices, and pharmaceuticals. We think our share in the high value products will also increase, not only the labor intensive sectors. And from UAE is a trading hub, so we would like to, we think that this agreement will enable our exporters to use UAE as a base to reach out to entire Middle East and North Africa regions. And also, as earlier mentioned, 1/3 of the population is UAE. Even according to the UAE studies, so around 135 new jobs will be created for Indians in UAE. Even the UAE side, they also told in the press conference. So overall, even for example, whatever UAE gains, it will help the Indian people to get employment there, and also the remittances will flow back from UAE to India. Whatever they gain, because the 1/3 population in India, so it will again flow back to India. So it is a big win-win agreement for both India and UAE. And I thank FTCCI, President Srikar Bhaskar Reddy garu, and also Telangana government, especially Krishna Bhaskar and Jayesh Ranjan sir for organizing this interactive session with all of you at a very short notice. Kathy also took a lot of efforts. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity. If there are any questions, I can take it. Any questions, anybody? Please, you can introduce yourself, sector, and also question. I can respond to the specific queries.
Yeah, I am Srikar. I represent a company called SkyShape based at Hyderabad. You did mention about the IPR. Can you briefly what exactly is there regarding the India UAE and the IPR sector?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. So IPA chapter is there. So it is based on the chapter in the WTO agreement, which is a TRIPS agreement, trade-related intellectual property rights. So we have a little bit over and above TRIPS in especially copyrights, protection of copyright, because we have a strong industry in the music and film industry, and also in the geographical indications, trademarks, and also especially in the genetic resources and traditional knowledge. Like we are also signatory of the Convention on Biological Diversity and Nagoya Protocol, where India is a biological diverse country. So now we think that there should be equitable sharing of benefits. For example, somebody uses our biological resource and develops a medicine or some other product, or chemical or anything. So there should be a benefit sharing agreement between the innovator and also the people, like the indigenous people who are holding that knowledge with them. So these are the new elements we brought into the agreement, which are over and above the TRIPS agreement, which are beneficial to India. Anything else you want? Right.
Good evening, Dr. Srikar Reddy. I got three questions. One regarding how will the Abrahamic Accords, which Israel signed with UAE and some of the Gulf countries, uh, affect this particular agreement? Two, whether this agreement will lead to Gulf GCC cooperation on the larger scale. And three, this 40% origin rule. Most of the Emirates, especially Ras Al Khaimah and Aswan, have got totally free trade zones. Will it in any way impact this 40% zones? And one question to Dr. Srikar Reddy. Why did we come out of RCEP and again going for FTAs? Because we are on an Atmanirbhar program. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Let me take all your questions, and maybe I'll request. I'll answer that. I'll request if anything to add from Srikar Reddy. So, see, Israel, we should not see anything politically thing, but you must have noticed that recently there is a new quad, which comprises India, Israel, US, and UAE. So we call U2 I2. I2 means India, Israel, and U2 means US and UAE. So now this is only a strategic kind of thing. Maybe we don't know, because even for the other quad, which is the Australia, Japan, India, and US. So now they are also discussing the trade and economic things. Future, I think, I cannot predict or anything, but there is a possibility that there could be cooperation on the trade front also under this new quad between India, UAE, and Israel. Regarding the GCC, as I mentioned already, I held a pre-negotiation meeting this month in the first week. So we are hopeful that now that one of the important member of the GCC has signed a bilateral comprehensive economic partnership agreement with India. So now we are at a preliminary stage. We are doing some study how extending further to the whole GCC will benefit each other. So hopefully next month they will try to finalize the terms of reference. And now we will be using, we'll propose to the GCC side that we can use the UAE agreement as a template so that we can quickly conclude the negotiations for a India GCC FTA. And rules of origin, what was the exact question? 40% you said, but can you again elaborate on your question? So let me answer before that the Atmanirbhar Bharat. So the we see the two concepts are complementary to each other. So as already government and also Honorable Prime Minister and our Commerce Minister had explained on numerous occasions, Atmanirbhar Bharat means not isolationist or closing doors from others. It is opening, like we want to enhance the manufacturing capacity in India, to link up to the supply chains. We want to be a reliable supply partner to many countries in the new COVID era. So I think as I mentioned, like government sees the trade as an important engine of economic growth. Just to inform, So this 2021, 22, the exports have performed much better than the average domestic growth. As I mentioned, like we were only less than around $290 billion exports last year. But this financial year, we are going to touch 400 billion. That is around 30% increase in our exports. So we can export is an important engine of economic growth, and it will also create employment. So these are all not mutually exclusive to each other. And moreover, as I said, we are looking at balanced trade agreement which are reciprocal in nature and fair, so that we'll get market access without any non-tariff barriers. As I mentioned, I also mentioned, even though already our pharmaceutical formulation especially are already receiving zero duty market entry, but we have come up with this agreement on pharmaceutical annex, whereby whatever barrier, no, like it will take a lot of time for the market access. Those kind of things also we have tried to address in this agreement. In the technical barriers to trade also, there is a lot of cooperation also. We have envisaged cooperation between our regulators on both sides who formulate the technical barriers or the technical regulation, not barriers, but technical regulation, so that our standards mutually we can recognize each other's standards, and also the cooperation between the standard setting bodies on both sides. So those kind of cooperation mechanism is also there in the text of the agreement. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir. This is Naidu. I'm from agriculture and food processing sector. I just wanted to understand because this line of business is completely unorganized in Middle East, UAE or any other GCC areas, and there are a lot of payment issues being arised for most of the people over there. Is there any mechanism or arbitration mechanism being considered in this agreement? Where if there is some payment issue, who should we as an exporter approach over there? In most of the places, the importer is getting vanished over there. Most of them are Indians and they'll come back to India. We will not be able to trace them back again.
Thank you for this question. See, we also signed one agreement between APEDA, Aldara, which is the food security agency and also standard setting agency, and the DP World. So this also serves both purposes of both parties. Like from India, we can increase our exports to UAE in agricultural products, and for UAE, they are assured about their food security because they are a net food importing country. They have to depend a lot from India. So regarding payments, these kind of trade disputes, there is no mechanism as in the sense we only have a country-to-country dispute settlement mechanism. But individual trade disputes like, for example, defaults, so we encourage traders to do the export insurance, credit insurance, export insurance kind of thing, and also like we also provide some subvention also for the export insurance, and also we have to use the regular our embassy and the consulate, where we are also trying to strengthen. Now that we have signed the agreement, we will have more officers who will try to implement the agreement and also make our community, exporters community to benefit. I think with these kind of issues, we can try to raise bilaterally, diplomatically, and resolve them.
Because this trade business is always unorganized, sir, and all the trade happens on free, without any NCA, without any payment guarantee. And for our export credit guarantee ECGC, all these countries under high risk category, and even the premium levels are so high, and most of the customers they are not even under the list of insuring them.
So what I say is, see, as you said, high risk category countries normally the premium is high. So if the exporters community, you can represent that if government can reduce the premium or something, that we can consider separately. But as the trade happens as a form of contract between the importer and the exporter. So in any trade agreement is enabling provision where the duties are reduced. The individual things have to be, whatever in the contract, you will have some legal things. But we will try to, normally the first thing is such kind of disputes, 50% I have seen in my experience working in Vietnam also, will be resolved by routing the complaints through the local chambers of commerce. So I have seen 50% of resolution occurs once the embassy take it up with the local chambers. And another